In this tutorial, we will understand Document Object Model CSS Selector. In the previous video, we had learned how to manipulate HTML element using Document Object Model methods. But there are much more general methods that you can locate element not just by ID or tag name, but also by the relationship to the other element. Now, in this tutorial, we will take a look at two methods of document object. First, query selector, and then query selector all. We will understand each method one by one. So let's get started. We will first take a look at query selector method. So in the HTML document, we will create a simple div element with the class div1, right? In this division tag, we will create two paragraphs. So we will first create a paragraph 1. So I will just say paragraph. So I will just specify p here and tab, and just specify class para, and just after that I will create another paragraph with id, right? So I will just say p tab id is equal to para1, right? So we wanted to specify unique id to the paragraph, so we will specify para1 here. Now using query selector, we will select the paragraph and specify some demo text using inner HTML property. Query selector method returns the first element that matches the specified CSS selector in the document. It means the query selector only returns the first paragraph and specify text using inner HTML property. Now, I will just open my main.js file. I will select a paragraph using query selector method. So I will just say let para is equal to document.querySelector. So I will just call my query selector method, and in the parenthesis I will call the paragraph using a CSS selector. So we will select the paragraph using the class. To select your paragraph using the class, you need to specify class name with dot operator, right? So I will just say dot here and specify your class name, right? So the query selector used to select CSS selectors. So we'll just say dot para here, right? Let me show you the paragraph on the console. So I will just specify console.log and say para here. So this method will only return one paragraph. Suppose in the dom.html file, we will create one more paragraph with the class para, then this method will not select the second paragraph because this method only returns the first matching element in the document. Now, just after that, I will just specify inner HTML property and specify some demo text to the first paragraph. So I will just say para.innerHTML is equal to paragraph, right? Now, using query selector, you can also select your HTML element using tag name. So if I specify only p here in the query selector, then this is also a valid statement. So if I just specify p here, then the result would be same, right? You are not limited to specify tag name or class name in the query selector, but you can also specify a unique ID to access HTML element, just like this. So if I just specify here hash para1, then this would return the same outcome. So now here we are accessing the paragraph using its ID. So whenever you wanted to access paragraph using ID, you need to specify hash before the name of the ID, right? So basically, using query selector, you can access any HTML element by class name, tag name, or using ID. Query selector is a CSS selector which allows you to select HTML element like CSS selectors. Like you can select HTML in the cascading style sheet to specify styling to your HTML elements, right? If you're not familiar with CSS, then make sure you first understand CSS selector and then move forward with this tutorial. Now let's understand what is query selector all. So query selector all method is identical to query selector method, but instead of returning only one element, this method will return all the matches element in the document that matches all the specified CSS selector. For example, so in the main.js file, I will just get rid of these statements, and here I will just create let para is equal to, and here I will say document.query selector all. Don't forget to select the right method. So now we are selecting query selector all. Now in the parentheses of this method, we will select the paragraph using class name. So I will just specify dot here before the class name and specify my class name here. So I will just specify para here, right? And I just wanted to show you what this method return. So I will just say console.log and specify para here. So this method will return a node list object. This node list object contains two paragraphs. Now to access any paragraph in the node list, we have square bracket. In this node list, we have collection of nodes. To access these nodes, we have index number. Using index number, you can access any node in the node list object, like this. So if you wanted to access the first paragraph, then I will just say para, and in the square bracket, I will specify 0 to select my first paragraph, and then specify dot, call my inner HTML property and specify some demo text, right? You can do the same thing to select the second paragraph also, but just change the index number. Now you know the difference between query selector and query selector all method. In the next tutorial, we will access HTML element and specify some styling.